Imagine a world with no rich or poor, where everyone is truly equal and all property is shared. This was the promise of communism, a vision that inspired revolutions and spoke to our deepest desires for fairness. But when this dream was put to the test, history delivered a chilling verdict: the empty fields of Ukraine, the re-education camps of China, and the killing fields of Cambodia. The utopian ideal, time and again, led to unimaginable suffering. Why does an idea that sounds so noble on paper so often turn into a nightmare in practice? Our quest to uncover the fatal flaw at the heart of communism that transforms its ideals into their terrifying opposites. We'll look beyond statistics, diving into the human stories and the mechanisms that drive these systems toward failure. To guide us, we'll follow the story of Cambodia, a nation that embraced communism in its most extreme form. In the mid-1970s, Cambodia sealed its borders and set out to create a perfect agrarian state from scratch. The rise of the Khmer Rouge and the horrors that followed will serve as a stark reminder of what's at stake. How did Cambodia's dream of Year Zero collapse into one of history's darkest chapters? Let's find out. In April 1975, the Khmer Rouge marched into Phnom Penh. Citizens, exhausted by war, welcomed them, unaware of the nightmare to come. Within hours, cities were emptied at gunpoint. Millions, doctors, teachers, monks, were forced into the countryside. Money, markets and religion were abolished. Family bonds shattered. Everyone wore black, ate together and worked from dawn to dusk. Cambodia became a vast prison camp. The world would soon learn the true cost of Year Zero. Communism, as envisioned by Marx and Engels, is built on the idea that history is a struggle between classes: the bourgeoisie, who own everything, and the proletariat, who own nothing but their labour. Marx believed capitalism was inherently exploitative and that the working class would eventually overthrow the owners, seizing the means of production. The result, a society with no private property, where everything is owned collectively and the state controls the economy. The goal? To eliminate class distinctions and create a stateless, classless utopia. But to abolish private property and control the economy, you need a powerful central government, usually a single-party state. This government decides what's produced, who works where, and what everyone is paid. The promise is fairness. The reality is absolute state power over people's lives. Dissent becomes impossible. Challenging the government means challenging your boss, your landlord, and your grocer all at once. The paradox: an ideology promising freedom from exploitation ends up requiring an all-powerful state that curtails freedom. This concentration of power is the root of communism's dangers. Don't forget to like and subscribe now. Communist states consistently fail to provide for their people. The reason? Central planning. Imagine a handful of officials deciding how many shoes, what sizes and what styles a nation needs. It's an impossible task. In market economies, prices and profits guide production. In command economies, planners are flying blind. The result? Shortages, inefficiency, and endless lines for basic goods. In agriculture, collectivization destroys personal incentive. Farmers work only as hard as they must, since any surplus is seized by the state. In Cambodia, the Khmer Rouge's abolition of markets and forced labour led to disaster. City dwellers knew nothing of farming. Experienced farmers had no reason to produce more. Unrealistic quotas ignored reality, causing the food supply to collapse. While leaders exported rice to prove their revolution's success, millions starved. The man-made famine killed over 1 million Cambodians. Central planning's failure is not a fluke. It's built into the system. When the state controls everything, it cannot respond to real needs. The tragedy of Cambodia is echoed in every command economy. The lesson: central planning breeds catastrophe. Communism doesn't just cause shortages, it stifles innovation. In capitalism, competition drives progress. Companies must innovate or die. In communism, the state owns everything. There's no competition, no incentive to improve. Factory managers care only about meeting quotas, not quality or innovation. The result? Stagnation. The Eastern Bloc's products lagged decades behind the West. East Germany's Trabant car was a symbol of this, slow, outdated and shoddy, but people had no choice. Without competition, economies grind to a halt. The Soviet Union, despite vast resources, could never match the productivity or living standards of the West. The promise of stability came at the cost of prosperity and progress. When you eliminate competition, you eliminate the engine of advancement. Communism's stability is an illusion. Its real legacy is stagnation. By the late 20th century, the failures of communism were undeniable. Shortages, stagnation and poverty forced change. Nations that once embraced Marx began to introduce market reforms. China's transformation is the most dramatic. After Mao's death, Deng Xiaoping allowed farmers to profit from their labor and opened the country to foreign investment. Food production soared, and China's economy took off. Russia's transition was chaotic, but it too moved toward a market system after the Soviet collapse. These countries didn't abandon communism because of outside pressure. They did so because the system failed their people. The promise of a workers' paradise had delivered only misery. By embracing private property, profit and competition, they unlocked productivity and innovation. China's economic miracle, lifting hundreds of millions from poverty, is proof of this shift. Even regimes that remain politically communist depend on market tools for survival. The lesson economic reality trumps ideology. Survival means adapting, not clinging to failed dogma. To understand communism's dangers, compare it to its rival regulated capitalism. The most successful economies blend free markets with government oversight, protecting consumers, workers and the environment. Economic freedom unleashes creativity. Millions of entrepreneurs and consumers make choices, driving innovation and raising living standards. Competition rewards good ideas and weeds out bad ones. Of course, unchecked capitalism has its own risks: monopolies, exploitation, environmental harm. That's why regulation matters. Governments enforce fair competition, protect workers, and provide a social safety net. This balance harnesses the best of both worlds, market dynamism and social protection. It's this system, not communism, that has lifted billions from poverty and driven historic progress. The contrast is stark. Capitalism, when regulated, delivers freedom and prosperity. The lesson is clear: balance, not utopia, creates the best outcomes. The evidence is all around us. North Korea remains a living museum of Stalinist communism, a society built on total state control. The state owns all industry and agriculture. There's no private property and the government dictates every aspect of life. Most resources go to the military, leaving the civilian economy in ruins. Chronic food shortages and famine are the norm. The 1990s famine killed hundreds of thousands. Jobs, food and housing depend on loyalty to the regime, enforced by a rigid caste system called Songbun. This hereditary system is the opposite of a classless society. It's a tool of control. Dissent is impossible. The Kim dynasty is worshipped as godlike and all media is state-controlled. North Koreans live in poverty and fear, cut off from the world. North Korea is the ultimate proof of communism's dangers, a promise of paradise that delivered a living hell. The country's suffering is not an accident, it's the direct result of its system. The world must not forget this warning. North Korea shows what happens when ideology is followed to its extreme. Our journey began with a question. Why does communism, an ideology of equality, so often end in disaster? Cambodia's Year Zero showed the horror of absolute power. Utopia turned to genocide and famine. The answer is clear. Communism's core requires destroying economic freedom and concentrating power in the state. Central planning leads to shortages and stagnation. Political control crushes dissent and individual rights. North Korea is the final chilling proof, a nation trapped in poverty and fear. China and Russia's pivot to markets was an admission that the old model was broken. The lesson: beware ideologies that demand sacrificing liberty for a collective controlled by the few. The most prosperous societies balance market creativity with sensible regulation. The story of communism is a warning. History's lessons must not be forgotten. Understanding the past is the best way to protect our future. Don't forget to like and subscribe now for a new catalogue of videos.